It's Truth in the Air, where in this podcast we will be unmasking the concerning truth behind climate change. Now, in this specific episode, we will be talking about the human impacts of climate change itself.
Before the discussion, let me introduce everyone quickly. My name is Edith, and with me are Quincy, Joanna, and Valerie. So let's start off. How familiar are you guys with climate change?
Well, who hasn't heard of climate change? I mean, it's one of the biggest global threats we're facing today.
Right, pretty sure we all know by now that climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. Since the 1800s, human activities have been a main driver of climate change. Yes, not only driven by humans, but it also affects humans. So let's start off with the first topic.
Now, it's undeniable that food and water are basic human needs where we cannot live without them. Study says that human can live up to 3 months without food, but only 3 days without water, so we're basically cooked without them.
Wow, that just really goes to show how vulnerable we are.
Yeah, really, we're actually very dependent on all of these things, yet as time goes by, humans act more and more arrogant. Well, according to the World Bank, climate change can also diminish clean water supply, which could also affect the food supply by possibly increasing the commonness of pests and disease.
But not only towards crops, right? I heard that it also affects livestock, which will then correlate to us as worse food supplies correlates to our health. Now, I thought the impact is only physical, but turns out it also impacts our mental health too.
Right, anxiety, PTSD, and depression are on the rise due to climate change. What physical health-related diseases do you guys think are affected by climate change?
Actually, I know that climate change are expanding the range of malaria, so it carries mosquitoes into areas previously free from diseases. For example, Pakistan. So malaria cases jumped to more than 1.6 million in 2022 after heavy flooding created stagnant water for mosquitoes to breed.
Oh, that sounds very serious. I also heard that climate change can lead to NCDs such as stroke and asthma. These diseases are mostly caused by wildfires, heat waves, and air pollution.
Moreover, the threat of food security that we said earlier could also lead to more malnutrition, especially in places that are most affected by global warming. These places will then have climate refugees.
But do you guys know what are actually climate refugees are? Because actually similar to the name, climate refugees refers to people that have to leave their home or communities because of the impact of the climate change or global warming.
Oh, how concerning. According to the UNHCR, the displaced population often have no option but to live in remote locations, informal settlements, or even overcrowded camps, with limited access to basic infrastructure and services.
Also, I heard that these climate refugees are still highly vulnerable from climate hazards like floods, droughts, storms, and heat waves. So, where are these refugees from?
These climate refugees are from Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia alone in 2018 have reached 143 million people. Well, you might be thinking, Indonesia is not on the list. So how does climate change affect our daily lives? So surprisingly, climate disasters can contribute to the economic problem in your own country.
That's so true. I agree with you because disasters like flood and then drought, it all can lead to national crisis because it disrupts businesses, destroys infrastructure, and even slow down the development.
And the numbers prove it. Switzerland reported climate-related disaster cost $275 billion in total economic losses in 2022 alone. Behind all those visible damages, there's lost productivity, rising unemployment, and poverty that sticks around for years.
Yeah, that's so true, especially for developing nations, which face a disproportionate financial burden with economic losses sometimes reach up to 5 until 10% of their GDP per event alone.
And guys, think bigger. When a region hits hard, the government has to spend tons of money for the recovery instead of for school, healthcare, or even infrastructure. That slows down long-term growth. It becomes a cycle. Disasters hits, economies suffer, poverty grows, and recovery takes years.
So, what did we learn today?
That climate change isn't some future distant problem. It's already knocking on our doors, messing with our food, our homes, our health, and even our wallet.
Yeah, and while we can't stop a hurricane with our bare hands, let's start by thinking smart and raising our voice and also supporting it in real actions.
Because let's be real guys, Earth is our only home and if we mess this up, there's no planet B.
Exactly, so next time you hear someone be saying climate change isn't a real deal, just hit them with the facts. And hey, the truth may be hard to hear, but on our podcast, it's literally in the air.
And just like the air is everywhere, we can't ignore it and we shouldn't.
Absolutely. So that wraps up this episode of Truth in the Air. Thanks for joining us. And remember, the climate is changing, but so can we.
See you next time! Bye!